As of 2019, more than 5.6 million Palestinians were registered with the UNRWA, the United Nations Relief and Work Agency for Palestinian refugees in the Near East, of which more than 1.5 million live in UNRWA-run camps. I mentioned privilege in my first part of this series, and in order for us to feel grateful, let's take a look at Palestinian refugees to understand how privileged we really are. Many Palestinian refugees hold travel documents instead of real passports. For those of you who don't know what these are, they look like passports. But these documents declare that the person holding this document is not a citizen of the country that issued them. As always, I don't want to talk about politics, but I'm going to try to make a point here. Before 1967, these documents were issued in some countries for refugees from Gaza, the West Bank, and other parts of North Palestine. In many cases, these individuals need permission to come back to the countries if they left to go study or work outside. Also, they aren't always allowed to work or study in the same countries issuing these documents, as they are not citizens. Also, in some cases, they are not allowed to leave the refugee camp, nor are outsiders allowed to enter these camps. So as a Palestinian refugee, you can't go to a decent school outside of this camp, nor get a decent job. Many of the people in these camps have been waiting for over 70 years to go back home, stuck in the land that they are not allowed to call home. And for those of them who are lucky enough to get a chance to work abroad and make better lives for themselves, it could be very difficult sometimes to renew their work visas, or even get a visa to a country where they can travel on vacation, God forbid. Palestinians holding travel documents have gotten used to being stranded at airports for extra security screening way before 9/11. Please be patient with me as I'm trying to prove a point about Arabs in America. So let's continue. The right of return, or haqq al-awda, is a principle in international law which guarantees everyone's right of voluntary return or re-entry to their country of origin or of citizenship. The right of return is a part of a broader human rights concept and freedom of movement, and is also related to the legal concept of nationality. But what will Palestinians return to? Occupation or apartheid, or maybe something worse? Now, do you guys feel privileged yet? So when these international refugees hear about countries like the USA, Canada, or Europe, where citizens of these countries can travel almost anywhere without visas, get a pension, health insurance, have the right to own a home and work, and avail whatever minimum advantages there is to being a citizen of this country, the obvious choice is to want to move there. And in the early 70s is when my parents decided to move to New York to pursue the American dream. The American dream is the idea by which equality of opportunity is available to any American, allowing the highest aspirations and goals to be achieved. Although more than half of American adults no longer believe in this idea anymore, this dream is still being chased by many people in the Middle East and all around the world. I believe that when a person feels that all hope is lost, it's only natural for them to seek dwelling elsewhere. Arab American communities have a long history in the United States. The diverse group includes anyone who came from or whose prior relatives came from the 22 Arabic-speaking countries in North Africa and the Middle East. Starting in the late 19th century, immigrants from the Ottoman Empire began to migrate to the United States to find work or escape political conflicts. This immigration slowed down in 1924 when the US government instituted immigration quotas that prioritized people from Northern and Western Europe, and picked up again after 1965. That followed the 1964 Civil Rights Movement, which was 1 year earlier when the United States got rid of the quota system. After this, Arab immigration mostly increased until 2017 and 18, when travel bans targeting predominantly Muslim countries slowed down this immigration. President Joe Biden revoked this existing travel ban in 2021 when he took office, but the ban still significantly slowed down Arab immigration to the United States. The first period of major migration from the Arab world started around 1880 and lasted until 1924. During this period, roughly 95,000 immigrants came to the US from what was known as Greater Syria, a region in the Ottoman Empire. This region included present-day Syria, Lebanon, Jordan, and Palestine. Israel didn't exist until 1948. The biggest driver really was the sort of disintegration of the Ottoman Empire, which dissolved after World War I, and the financial pressures that were prevalent on Mount Lebanon in particular, says Randa Kayali, author of The Arab Americans. In Lebanon, a blight or plant disease on the mulberry trees, important to silk production, caused a collapse in the industry, leading many silk farmers to look for work in other countries. Immigrants from Lebanon and other parts of Greater Syria left to escape poverty and famine, but also political issues. In the early 1900s, the Ottoman Empire's decision to conscript Christians as well as Muslims into their military motivated Christians in Greater Syria to immigrate. Once in the United States, many Arab immigrants found work in factories in the Northeast or Northwest. Some of the first mosques in the country were built by Muslim Arab Americans in North Dakota, Michigan, and Iowa. Others worked as peddlers, selling goods door to door throughout the country. Because of the travel involved in peddling, by 1900, you would find a small Arab community in just about any state, says Matthew Jaber Stifler, a researcher at the Arab American National Museum in Dearborn, Michigan. Though Arab immigration dropped during World War I, the major shift in immigration came in 1924 when the United States passed an immigration act known as the Johnson-Reed Act. This law established a quota system that favored immigrants from Northern and Western Europe, while severely restricting the ability of people from other parts of the world to immigrate to the United States. The Johnson-Reed Act's quota system was in place for 4 decades, and it drastically reduced the number of Arab immigrants to the United States. With its passage in 1924, immigration from the Arab world dropped to about 1,000 people or fewer a year. After World War II, the United States began to make some exceptions that slightly increased the number of immigrants coming from Arab countries. The US government made exceptions for doctors, scientists, engineers, and other people with sought-out professional skills who wanted to immigrate to the United States. As a result, many educated people from countries like Syria, Lebanon, Palestine, Jordan, Egypt, and Iraq came to the United States, marking the beginning of a phenomenon known as the brain drain, which I guess means that the talent and skill of a country or its brains being drained because they are moving out to live elsewhere. The other exception involved refugees. The wars in Palestine in the late 40s that led to the establishment of Israel and the displacement of hundreds of thousands of Palestinians led many to seek refuge in other countries. The Refugee Relief Act in 1953 allowed 2,000 Palestinian families to immigrate to the United States. The US also accepted another 985 Palestinian families in the late 1950s and early 1960s. In 1965, the United States experienced another major shift in immigration policy. The Hart-Celler Immigration and Nationality Act eliminated the discriminatory quota system from 1924, allowing many more people from outside Northern and Western Europe to immigrate to the country. This led to an increase in immigration to the United States from all over the world, including Arab countries. The new law led to a big increase in Arab immigration. Between 1960 and 1990, some 400,000 people immigrated to the United States from the Arab world. Many of these immigrants were educated professionals or students who came to the US to study at US schools and found work in the country afterwards. Others were refugees fleeing conflicts at home, in addition to Palestinians who continued to flee displacement and discrimination. The United States began to receive refugees from the Lebanese Civil War, which lasted from 1975 to 1990. The fourth major immigration period from 1990 to the present day has been very fraught. During this period, many refugees fled conflict in the Middle East, including wars that the United States has ironically started. After the attacks on September 11, 2001, the United States began to require male Muslims over the age of 16 who had recently immigrated from certain Arab countries to submit to annual photographs and fingerprints, making many Arab Americans feel unwelcome in the country. After a brief decline, Arab immigration continued to grow in the 21st century, with tens of thousands of Arab immigrants entering the country every year. However, Arab immigration dropped substantially in 2017 when President Donald Trump signed an executive order severely restricting travel, immigration, or the ability to claim refugee status from 7 predominantly Muslim countries: Iran, Iraq, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, Syria, and Yemen. In 2018, the US Supreme Court upheld an amended version of the ban targeting people from these countries, as well as North Korea and Venezuela. President Joe Biden revoked the ban in 2021 when he took office. By a wide margin, the US has more immigrants than any other country in the world. As of 2015, the United Nations estimates that 46.6 million people living in the United States were not born there. This means that about 1 in 5 international migrants, 19%, live in the US. The US immigrant population is nearly 4 times that of the world's next largest immigrant destination, Germany, with about 12 million immigrants. The UN's figure of 46.6 million includes Puerto Rico and others born in US territories. They are not counted as immigrants by the US Census Bureau or in most Pew Research Center publications. People born in Puerto Rico and US territories are US citizens at birth. Several other countries such as France, the United Kingdom, and China also have territories and special administrative regions, which the UN treats as distinct origins and destinations of international migrants. We all know that the America we know today was built by immigrants, and that America proudly celebrates this with most of its public holidays. These immigrants brought their culture with them, the music, the food, the fashion, and all the stories that came with them. That's excluding chocolate hummus. I hate the people who invented that. This video is a tribute to all the people who are able to make better lives for themselves, as well as the ones still trying. I talked in the past about Orientalism and how many people in the West view us, which was influenced by colonialism. But did you ever think about how Arabs view America? When Arabs around me here find out that I'm an American citizen, most of them are surprised and ask why aren't I living in the States? And the tone is like, what are you, crazy? They have this romantic notion about people living the dream over there. Others make remarks like, I wouldn't want to live there with such a high crime rate. I even get remarks like, I'll go to jail for hitting my kids. I'm going to talk about perception in my next video, so stay tuned. Maybe I should make a full video on how Arabs view Americans and the West. Who knows? Thanks for sticking around to the end of this video. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. And don't forget to check out my Patreon link in the description box below. Until next time.